On today's episode of Andy and Ari On3, the great Pete Nakos of On3 joins us to talk about the coaching carousel, which has already started spinning. What should we expect from the coaching searches at Virginia Tech and at UCLA? And what does that say about the other coaching searches that are to come in this new era of college football? Also, we ask the question, what is wrong with Arch? We also revisit Ari's preseason prediction that there is no possible way that Arch Manning could be bad. But after watching against UTEP on Saturday, it does seem possible. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, and Ari and I will try to figure out what the heck is going on. And no, it's not just because we're mad because we're bad at projecting which quarterbacks will be good. But we are bad at that too. On to the show. We are presented by BetMGM. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB, as in college football, CFB, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app, sign up using the bonus code CFB. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code CFB when you sign up. Now, if you've already signed up for BetMGM, we got something for you too. On September 19th and 20th, so Friday and Saturday, we got a college football parlay boost token. No matter where the college football action is, there's nothing like getting in the game and leveling up your next parlay. Use this parlay boost token to boost your potential payout from a winning college football parlay. We also, on Friday and Saturday, the 19th and the 20th, have a college football odds boost token. It's time to zero in on every snap. Activate your odds boost token on any college football bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. So make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary with BetMGM. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in the U.S., call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, call 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by BetMGM. The coaching carousel is already spinning, Ari. We talked a little bit about this on yesterday's show, but obviously we had to get to the picks. I would like to dive deeper into the job openings at Virginia Tech and UCLA because it's fascinating that they're open now. And I think we can probably roll that forward a little bit to talk about maybe some other schools where this may be coming down the pipe, but also about who might be the right candidates for jobs at Virginia Tech and UCLA.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think this is an indication that this year is going to go off haywire, or do you think it was just two exceptionally bad situations?
I think because of the way those teams lost to those teams that they played. So UCLA losing to New Mexico, Virginia Tech getting blown out at home by Old Dominion. I think because of that, it felt like there was no choice. Like the somebody had to step in and say, this is changing. Please come back to our games, but we're making a change and we promise. Trust us.
Yeah.
I don't know that the other schools are there yet, but I do think there's going to be more action this year. I remember I had agents in the offseason saying because people were very reluctant to fire last year that there will be more this year. And the reason they were reluctant to fire last year is the revenue sharing stuff was coming in. Everybody was trying to make sure they had $20.5 million that they could share with the athletes. So now they understand how the budgets work in that situation. they're ready to go. And if they want to make a change, they'll make a change. So we'll see. But let's bring on an expert, Ari. Let's talk to Pete Nakos. He's been all over these job searches, which are in their very infant stages. But Pete, let's start with Virginia Tech, because this is a once proud program. Obviously, under Frank Beamer, was one of the best programs in college football. When they joined the ACC, they were dominant in the ACC early. But really, since the tail end of the Justin Fuente era and all through the Brent Pry era, they just haven't been a factor.
Yeah, you look at Virginia Tech, obviously what Frank Beamer did there has been really hard to replicate since he left. And obviously, too, they went Big East to ACC, but I think it's safe to say that what Frank Beamer did at Virginia Tech is almost what Clemson has done in the last decade. I think that's a good comparison for fans to have. Everything I've heard to this point is that they want to hire either a sitting head coach or a head coach with significant experience. And that can vary. That can be a group of 6. That can be a Pat Fitzgerald or a Dave Clawson, who have been sidelined this season. And then Whit Babcock, he's having a press conference as we speak right now. He just basically outlined that he wants to hire a football general manager to really help oversee, revenue sharing, NIL, roster management. So I think what we're going to see happen at Virginia Tech is a head coach who can come in and win and has that strong track record. At the same time, they want to bring someone into who knows what it's like to structure a college football program in 2025.
Are we going to get through this entire segment without acknowledging that Pete is wearing a nice little sport coat with a golf shirt? That's like elite level. I'm rich and I belong to a country club attire, is it not?
Well, when you start breaking news like Pete does, that's what happens to you. You get into that echelon. Yeah, exactly.
I'm saying he's going to belong to a country club at some point with all of this news breaking, and I just love that
part of one right now.
Are you?
No, gosh, no.
Well, I mean, a lot of these country clubs actually have they have very attractive rates for people in their 20s to try to get them, locked in.
Pete's still in that Groucho Marx mode. I wouldn't belong to any club that would have me as a member. But speaking of clubs, we do have to figure out what club Virginia Tech is in, because Pete, you mentioned Whit Babcock, their athletic director. And I think Whit Babcock did something about 2 months ago that I don't know that a lot of ADs would have done. He went to the board that oversees Virginia Tech and basically said, hey, we don't fund our athletic department or our football program at levels where they can be truly competitive in this day and age of college sports, and basically asked for more money and said the school's going to have to kick in some if we want to compete with the likes of Clemson and Florida State and in North Carolina in the way they're spending. And it's interesting because I was talking to somebody else about this today, and they said that probably answers some of the questions that coaches and their agents are going to have when they talk to Whit Babcock.
Yeah. So Virginia Tech has about a $122 million athletic budget right now. They want to get to $200 million, or at least that's what Whit Babcock suggested this summer. Just from speaking to agents and trying to get a feel for how candidates are going to feel about Virginia Tech, the biggest question is, what is the NIL going to look like? Because what facilities was a decade ago, maybe even less than a decade, NIL and revenue sharing has taken over as, what can I do with this roster in a short period of time? Because it's great if you can bring players with you from the school you're at or something like that. But if you don't have the money to go acquire talent, you really can't turn around a program.
I just think that Virginia Tech in general is interesting, and I don't know if just like my childhood clouds the judgment, or if history clouds the judgment of what's expected at a place. But what is Virginia Tech supposed to be in 2025, and how do you tailor a hiring to mirror that? Obviously, you want to go get somebody who's going to be as successful as possible and bring your program ceiling back up to national title. But I feel like it's a very hard job to hire for, because I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if it's recruit locally. I've heard Michael Vick's name thrown around. I've heard Shane Beamer's name thrown around. Yeah. I don't know if hiring Michael Vick is the answer to the initial question. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a confusing job to me. What do you think, Pete?
So on the Michael Vick front, reported this morning that have heard that some boosters push for him to go get the Norfolk State job just so he has some coaching experience moving forward. I think it's extremely unlikely that Virginia Tech hires him this go around, but it really wouldn't surprise that many if, in 5 years, if Virginia Tech hires a coach who brings the Hokies back to a high standing and maybe he wants to go to the SEC or something like that, we could see Mike Vick's name kind of come to the forefront. That wouldn't surprise a lot of people. Now, in terms of what the ceiling is at Virginia Tech, and I feel like I'm queuing this up for Andy to jump in and expand on it, but I would say making it to the ACC title game every 3 years is kind of what they envision, being in the top 25 in a consistent manner so they're relevant nationally. I think those are kind of like what the ceiling, or at least the standard, and the opinion of fans and people in the administration look like.
Yeah, and I think the ceiling and standard is different. So like that, the standard, I think maybe for every Power 4 program, I think their expectation is to be in or around the top 25 on an annual basis with a breakout year once every 5 years, right? Like,
yeah.
I think that's a very fair expectation for Virginia Tech.
Now, the one thing about Virginia Tech, too, and I know we're going to talk about UCLA, like Virginia Tech expects football to bring more eyeballs onto the university. Like they need football to be the front porch. And I know that is the biggest cliche that administrators throw out there, but they need and expect football to like be a high representation of the university and drive enrollment and get more dollars and things like that.
Well, and the thing is, like Lane Stadium, the inner Sandman entrance, like when that place is packed and hopping, it looks like a really cool place to go to school. So I get where they're coming from on that. The question is, what type of coach wants this job? What type of coach fits this job? You mentioned Pat Fitzgerald, who I said would fit at either here or UCLA because he's won in a place where it's probably more difficult than either of those to win at Northwestern. But also, I'm wondering, would you go coordinator again? Because they went coordinator last time. It didn't work out the way they wanted it to. But would you go like a Buster Faulkner, who's been a very good coordinator in the ACC at Georgia Tech and understands kind of where this is going, has been there as Georgia Tech has changed the way they fund their athletic department. They're a place that was probably in the boat that Virginia Tech is in right around when Brent Key got the job.
Yeah. But
Jay Batt, who has since gone on to Michigan State as the athletic director, did a pretty good job raising their level of funding.
The way I look at it, too, is I'm talking to someone about this yesterday. I think a Jeff Monken or a Brian Newberry, the Army and Navy head coaches, are almost more, I kind of have them higher on my hot board at this point than an offensive coordinator just because of I think Virginia Tech really wants to bring someone in who has proven that they can win. And Jeff Monken he's got a great body of work and has proven that. Now, the one thing about Buster Faulkner, and we talk about other coordinators too, if Whit Babcock goes and brings in this GM who can really help, a Buster Faulkner set up his roster and things like that, and Buster can just, make the recruiting pitches and make sure that everything goes well on the field, then maybe that kind of hire works.
And we're talking about like a Jim Nagy at Oklahoma, Ron Rivera at Cal, where this is a GM with some power.
Yes.
Pete, I don't know if we can get through Virginia Tech without at least acknowledging that Shane Beamer exists, as Andy and I were 10 feet away from him and as he was getting emotional talking about Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago. And I'm not asking you if you think he would take the job, but I think that it frames another interesting question, which is, the three of us know that the ACC is on borrowed time. We don't know what that's going to look like or how it's going to manifest in the crazy world of expansion and all the things that college football is headed. Yeah. But if you use Beamer as a case study for the rest of the coaching candidate list, I have a hard time believing that Shane Beamer would take that job, because how could you leave an SEC job?
There's no way in hell I would take that job if I were Shane Beamer. I don't care how emotional and sentimental you get about it. South Carolina bid against itself to give Shane Beamer more money this offseason. They would owe him so much money if they fired him. So if things went badly in Columbia, like the worst thing that happens is you get paid gajillions of dollars.
Yeah.
There's no way I'd leave if I were.
But to land the plane, how attractive are because we're going to talk about UCLA, and I find this interesting because on one hand, Virginia Tech to me is a much better job than UCLA because of the
agreed.
The front, because I don't know if UCLA believes in the front porch theory.
No.
I don't know if they've shown that.
They don't need it.
But it's an interesting conference affiliation because do you want to go to a place that's in the Big Ten or do you want to go to a place that might be in a conference that's dissolved? And I don't know where Virginia Tech lands in realignment. I don't know if it's a valuable property or if it's one that is in danger of being left behind. Maybe you don't think about that. You're a coach in 3 or 4 years. If you do well there, you have a chance to go up and get a better or bigger job. But how much does being in the ACC help, hinder, indifferent when it comes to who they are trying to hire and how they're perceived on the job market?
I think Shane Beamer thinks about that. I think he's well aware that Virginia Tech could be on the wrong side of realignment, whatever you want to call it. And the other reality, too, is UVA is the more attractive school to poach for one of these conferences than Virginia Tech. And I know some Virginia Tech fans are going to come at me in the YouTube comments, but that's reality.
Well, and the reality is UVA may open, too. Like, it depends on the year Tony Elliott has this year. So they actually may be competing against one another for this. And that would add a different dynamic to it as well. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. Obviously, they're not going to hire anybody tomorrow. Maybe they hire the GM during the season and we kind of get a sense of what they're looking for. That's going to be really interesting to watch. We will be back talking more coaching searches with Pete Nakos. But first, let's talk Modelo. Your school just fired its coach. You might want to crack a Modelo. If your school's looking for a new coach, you might want to crack a Modelo. If your school's doing great, if they had an incredible game last Saturday and didn't have to fire anybody, in fact, they're thinking about giving the coach more money, it's time to crack a Modelo. That's right. College football season is Modelo season. And if you're listening to this right now, it means it's time for a reward, and you need to reward your full-time fandom with a Modelo. I cracked one on Thursday night when that ACC tilt came on, and it was glorious. What an experience. Cold Modelo in hand, college football on the TV. There is nothing better. And look, if you're a full-time fan, you're dealing with the ups and downs of the season. So you may be rooting for a team where the coach has been fired or is about to be fired. You may be rooting for a team that is on the upswing, that is having a great year. Either way, the best way to enjoy those games is with an ice cold Modelo. So grab yourself a Modelo and stay game day ready all season long. Let us head to Westwood now, Pete, because the UCLA job is different than the Virginia Tech job because it is a Big Ten job. So it is in one of the two conferences that everybody wants to be in. But if I'm a coach, I'm looking at it like UCLA does not seem to care about football the way most of the rest of the Big Ten seems to care about football. And how do they handle that? How does UCLA handle that? Is it possible that they start to care more? Because the firing of Deshaun Foster and the timing of the firing of Deshaun Foster suggests a bit of a change, because when Chip Kelly left, they clearly were hiring on the cheap. They were looking at assistants, they were looking at alums, they were looking at people who would probably give UCLA a little bit of a discount. This time it feels like somebody stepped in and said, hey, we got to do something right now. And I wonder if that means that changes the tone and tenor of this search.
So obviously UCLA moved on from Deshaun Foster Sunday morning. There was some, I don't want to say confidence, but when we woke up Sunday morning and UCLA hadn't done anything yet, there was a thought that, okay, Deshaun Foster is going to make it, another week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. But then they called the players meeting, and that was the sign that it was heading in the direction that it went in. I think the biggest question mark that everyone in the country has about UCLA is what does the commitment to football look like? How relevant is it to the UCLA administration and the booster group as a whole to give money to UCLA? Now there is a new chancellor. He helped get Mario Cristobal to Miami. He from everything I've been told, he definitely cares about football and understands how football can help the university. The other big factor here is, I'll come out and say it, Casey Wasserman, who's helping put together the LA Olympics in 2028.
No relation to Ari.
No,
You don't know that.
I'm pretty sure.
That.
He is the biggest booster for UCLA, and he will have a say in this, especially when things haven't gone well with Martin Jarman's decisions in the past. I think a lot of people around the country, though, really don't have a great understanding that will need to be clarified in the next, weeks or months about how much UCLA cares about football.
I just feel like on the surface, if it was 4 or 5 years ago, UCLA, I just like the old geography aspect of this whole thing, the beautiful uniforms. I don't know how much you care about the stadium being a 40-minute drive away in LA traffic. I think that might be an issue, but like UCLA, we've seen be very good at times. And I just like this idea that UCLA all of a sudden is a hopeless job in the new era of sports is kind of crazy to me. Like it feels hopeless to me. And in the moment, now that can change. All you need is an influx of cash, right?
Yeah.
But how does a coach feel like that's going to happen during the interview process? Do you have the conversations with chancellors and boosters and people of like, hey, how's this thing going to go?
Yeah.
How do you take that people at their word? If you have one bad year, do you revert back to stadiums having 28 people in it? Like, I just don't know how you could possibly do that job.
Yeah.
And
the other thing too is, there's obviously a lot of financial problems within the institution. They're paying $1 million a year to Cal. There's just so many questions. Now, the other interesting thing too here is UCLA better because they're in the Big Ten? Like in obviously Oregon has looked good. USC starting to figure it out. Washington is really exciting this year with Jonah Coleman. I think UCLA would be in a better spot right now if the Pac-12 didn't dissolve.
Even with the influx of money?
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to recruit on the West Coast and play the set of schools they played, I think would be better. And I'm well aware that they lost to UNLV in New Mexico, but I think that overarchingly, I think they haven't won this whole conference realignment.
Well, the thing is, like, they've got to pay the $10 million a year to Cal, so they don't really get to reap the benefits of Big Ten membership in the way that Oregon does and Washington does, even though UCLA is actually making a bigger share from the Big Ten than those guys are. But they're not in the same boat USC is, for example, because USC is a private school. They didn't have to deal with any of that through realignment. So that's what I wonder, because there is a lot to sell. And again, I mentioned it, it's in one of the two conferences everybody wants to be in. They are already in the club. They're not getting kicked out of the club. They're a brand name.
Yes.
So do they try to capitalize on that? Because I do think that increases the quality of the candidate pool.
What do we know about coaches?
So
they
want a sitting head coach, or they want a coach with significant head coaching experience. Obviously, the hot coordinator names are going to get thrown out there. Will Stein at Oregon, Dan Lynn at USC. Two Power 4 names that I've heard that have really come up that make some sense is Dave Arena at Baylor. He's from the West Coast. Bruce Feldman, friend of the program, pointed out that his first date with his wife was a UCLA football game. I didn't know that before I read Bruce's stuff.
Because he wanted an environment, Pete. He wanted to feel cozy, but be able to hear what she spoke. He didn't want to go to a restaurant.
Oh, that's cold. That is cold.
Okay. Other name is Brent Brennan, the Arizona head coach who used to be at San Jose State. Rocky first year, 3-0 to start year 2. There's a new AD at Arizona. Does he look for an exit route and try to get closer to home? The other name everyone's going to talk about too is Jed Fish. I'm aware he has a big buyout. I'm aware that it's only year 2 in Seattle. He does.
Are you aware his alma mater is also potentially coming open?
I'm aware, but I'm also aware that there's another name at the top of the board at Florida whose name is not Jed Fish.
That's true. That is true.
I wonder how much of that will change, and if Washington has another great year. I don't know. But here's what I was going to say.
Before you say what you're going to say, Ari. Before I didn't know what you're going to say, but I like it. And I want to give you the stage for it. Yeah, I want to give you the stage for it. But I think Washington's a better job than UCLA right now. Like, and I don't even think it's close.
I don't think it's close either.
Yeah. I mean, Jed Fish just might like moving. I don't know. I think it's the worst thing in the world. I'm kidding. I think that if he has a really good year and Florida opens, that is going to be a fascinating thing to watch. But What do we know about coaches? We know that they are climbers, that they want to know what jobs are open. They're always constantly looking at what opportunities are around, and they are very aware of how they are viewed and care a lot about that, right?
Yeah.
If you take all the things into play at UCLA and you say, oh, it's in the Big Ten, it's in a fertile recruiting territory, all those things, there's a lot to like about it. But the one thing that is going to hurt them, I think, in trying to find somebody, at least, an up and coming coordinator even, is that you have to be more aware now than ever before of taking the wrong job and what that can do to you. And, that's true in our industry. That's true in everyone's industry. If you take the wrong job too early, it can mess up your trajectory. And I think that, like, if you're thinking about like a Danton Lynn type person who has coached at both places, but is also regarded as a great coordinator and awesome recruiter on the West Coast, like, do you want to go and take your first opportunity at a place that is an uphill battle to be successful in a way that isn't at other places? And is that a good long-term chess move for your career path? And I think that, like, it is a very fair criticism of that place at the moment. And you can make jokes about how their stadium is empty. Their stadium is empty because there's a reason for it to be empty. It's about the product that's put on the field, and that product has been porous. And you have to go into the questions of why has it been porous? Is it because Deshaun Foster is a terrible coach and it's all his fault? And I don't think that it's all his fault, and it's a shame that UCLA is viewed this way now, because at one point, maybe even 10 years ago, I would have made it a top 25 job in the country, considering where it is and what it has to sell, good school, all the things that kids used to care about. Now it just can't pay as much. And it's not committed to paying as much. And I don't care if you're go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you're a coordinator, UCLA is not the first job I want. I prefer to wait it out and go take a USF or Tulane over UCLA right now if I'm going to be a first-time head coach.
This is going to be a fascinating job search because they can go a lot of different ways with this thing. And, we talked earlier about Virginia Tech, and I feel like they're in more of a kind of a defined slot of what you're looking at, or kind of types you're looking at.
Yeah.
This is open to all types. Because there's a lot of people who want to come coach in the Big Ten.
PJ Fleck's name has already been thrown around a little bit.
He talked to them last time. And didn't they kind of lowball him? I believe they lowballed him. But what I was going to say is I just find it extremely unlikely that he leaves Minnesota at this point for a school that kind of passed on him last time around. Yeah, this is going to be a very intriguing coaching search. I don't really know how to handicap it at this point. And they've got time. I mean, part of this is they have 2.5 months to figure this out. And I think the question that has to be answered is what does UCLA care about football? Like, how deeply do they want to care? And you mentioned they have a new chancellor. We'll see what Casey Wasserman decides to tell people behind the scenes, because obviously he's a very important part of all this. Yeah, your cousin?
Yeah.
Long lost.
It's like Ben Staples is my cousin?
Yeah. There's got to be something there. There's not a lot of Wassermans out there.
Okay. Well, you just reach out and say, hey, long lost. Just tell me who you're going to hire. We want to break this thing.
Yeah.
Pete, one more question before we let you go. With UCLA, we talked about Virginia Tech hiring a GM. Obviously, UCLA's former conference mates, Cal and Stanford, have situations where there are very powerful GMs that are probably more powerful than the coach, which is more of an NFL model than a college model traditionally. Is that something we could see at UCLA?
I think we could see it. I think there needs to be a lot more clarity about who's making the hire at this point. And as someone I talk to a lot likes to say, the body isn't even cold yet. But there are a lot of questions that need answered.
Yeah, I think that's one. And people think all coaching searches are alike, and you just fire a guy and you go find a new guy. It's not that. A lot of times you have to figure out who's in charge at the school, who's actually making the decision. And this is one of those where I think we don't totally know yet. So we'll wait to find out.
Virginia Tech either.
That's true. It's true. Well, we'll find out as we go. That will present itself over the next few months, and we'll probably be able to narrow it down a little better. But Pete Nakos, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Love you, Pete.
Love you too, Ari.
Bitch.
All right, we're going to talk Texas and Arch Manning next, but right now let's talk a little bit about Game Time. Do you want to go see Auburn play Oklahoma? That's where I'll be this weekend. There's some pretty awesome tickets that are available for a pretty reasonable price. I was looking at one for $158 that it's a hell of a view, and I can actually see the view on the Game Time app because you click the game you want. It shows you the tickets that are available, and it shows you exactly where you'd be sitting in the stadium. So good deals if you want to go to Auburn, Oklahoma. Good deals if you want to go to Michigan, Nebraska. There's a couple in the $200 range that are just awesome views at Memorial Stadium in Nebraska if you want to watch Michigan and Nebraska play in a very big Big Ten game. Download the Game Time app, redeem the code STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's the code STAPLES, STAPLES. Download that Game Time app. Ari, you look at these are good seats for not nearly as much as I thought they'd be.
Yes, and also, too, the no hidden fees thing.
Oh,
so
love it.
Yeah.
Love it. The number you see on the Game Time app, that's the price you'll pay. They don't stick another, $80 worth of fees at the end of it. That number is what you're paying, and those are pretty good numbers right now if you want to go to Auburn, Oklahoma, or Michigan, Nebraska. So download the Game Time app, redeem the code STAPLES, and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, of course. Ari, let us talk now about Arch Manning. And I know we talked about him a little bit on Saturday, but Steve Sarkisian talked Monday, so we have a little more context, though I don't know that we have any answers. But before we get into the discussion of Arch Manning, I want to go back to August because while both of us were positive about Arch Manning, both of us thought he was going to be pretty good. You said something that gave me pause. You said something that made me push back. And I wanted to revisit it because I wanted to see, am I not remembering it correctly? Mm-hmm. It turns out I'm remembering it exactly right. But this is the discussion we had on August 13th. If he balls out against Ohio State, we are due for a full-on frenzy. And if he has a bad game against Ohio State, it will be like the world is ending. It's going to be utterly fascinating. I covered Tim Tebow as a beat writer and remember watching that. But that was 2006 as a freshman, 2007 his first year as a starter. Social media did not exist in the way it does now. This is a completely different animal here.
Andy, I've shared this on the show, this take, and I'll say it again. Not Tim Tebow. Arch Manning is a lock to go to New York. Like, there's no way he's not going to New York. Period.
What if he's bad?
The only way that he doesn't is if he gets hurt. He's going to New York.
What if he's bad?
It's not even a possibility, dude. It's just not.
You don't think it's possible? Okay, not even bad. Average. You don't think it's possible that he could be average?
I think that if he is average in that offense, that he will put up good enough numbers to warrant the mania. I think that he will insist upon him.
He got booed by the Texas fans against UTEP. We're long past average.
Listen, Andy, I was in Vegas, the mountain air. Like, what do you want? Like, the elevation. Listen, that take I still feel pretty good about in the moment because in my mind,
there's no whoa, stop. Just like I have to own and eat.
Yeah.
The DJ Lagway is the number one quarterback in the country take. Like, yeah. You have to own. There's no feeling good about this take.
You got to let me I was going to tell you. I feel good about where my head was at the time because here's the difference. I said, and I was wrong. There's no getting around it. I'm not trying to pretend like I wasn't wrong. Clearly, I was wrong. But I think there's a difference between being truly elite and being productive. I thought it was a virtual impossibility for him to at least not be productive. Like, that's the thing. Like, what we saw on Saturday was legitimately shocking. And I don't care what you said in August, whether it was as blatantly obviously wrong as what I said or what you were saying or what everyone else was saying. Nobody had that on their predictions list. Okay.
No,
so like,
you're right.
You can like mock people for thinking he was going to be good or overhyping him. And rightfully so. Those people, in week 3 of the season have so far been proven to be wrong. There wasn't a single analyst out there that was like, hey, I've watched the tape. I've seen what he did last year, and he's going to come out the following year and have a different throwing motion and not be able to complete a pass against UTEP. Like that, is not on the range of things that we're supposed to see coming. So
you've been saying this. You've been saying this since the Ohio State game. You're like, he's throwing from a different arm slot. What's going on? And we've had people ask Steve Sarkisian if he's hurt. And Steve Sarkisian says he's not hurt. And, I went back and watched his start against Louisiana Monroe last year just to kind of see if I could see the same thing you were seeing. And it does look different. Like, there are very confident throws that he made in that game where he's just letting it rip. He's just ripping it right down the seam. And it doesn't look like his arm motion looks this year. It looks
like mechanical to me. And I don't know if you're trying to come up with a reason, because there has to be a reason, because here's the thing.
It looks like a golfer who, they finish a PGA season, they go away for the winter and they get a new swing coach and they come back and all of a sudden they can't play. And because they changed their swing and either something physically or mentally changed with them and it looks completely different. And that's what it looks like here. I don't know if it's mental, physical, or both, but that's what it looks like.
And I want to keep unpacking this, Andy. How many starting quarterbacks in the Power 4 do you think could dice up UTEP's defense? Just from a percentage perspective, make it up.
75%.
I was going to say 80. So you're telling me that Arch Manning is in the bottom 20% of good in college football? Is that what we're thinking right now?
That's what it looks like right now. So,
I guess if you're buying stock, this would be a pretty good value buy, because I don't think it's ever as bad. This isn't the dip. This is a crash. Ohio State was the dip. This was oh my God, the earnings report came out, and it is awful. I have no idea how to react to this because I've never seen this before. I can't even think of a time where a quarterback who had such hype and the program was built around them from a coach that we view as an offensive juggernaut come out and not be able to be productive against UTEP. And I don't know if that's a team thing. I don't know if it's an offense thing. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know what the reason is. But you can go through all the quarterbacks that have come through as 5 stars and busted out. You're not going to find a lot of tape of guys in their first year, the way that Arch is the full-time starter, throwing 10 incompletions or 9 incompletions in a row against UTEP. That was so remarkably bad. It's shocking. So it's on the complete polar opposite of the funny, assertion that I made in the summer about him going to New York, because I could not quantify in my head in August how he wouldn't at least be productive. So I was wrong, but so was everybody else, dude. I was wrong in a more aggressive degree. To me, it's still what the hell is going on there? This is.
Oh, and if you're Steve Sarkisian, you got to figure it out, because you let Quinn Ewers walk to the NFL, and now you've got this guy who you thought was going to be the heir apparent, the replacement, your starter for at least the next 2 years, and you've got to figure this out. You've got to make it work with him, at least for the rest of this year. So. Now, Steve Sarkisian seems fairly confident that Arch has it in him to come out of this. And so he got asked at his press conference, how do you get a player's attention? Because it's not, with a quarterback's a little bit different. You can't pull a quarterback out of the game like a defensive end. And well, I guess you can. I guess we saw that with Quinn Ewers and Arch in the Georgia game last year. But usually you don't do stuff like that.
But I saw Quincy, and I know that Quincy Avery, the quarterback coach, is a pretty
lightning rod. For sure.
Personality on Twitter. But I think he posted something, or it was him or somebody else. I'm 90% sure it was him on early this week that reminded me of a conversation that I wanted to go down with you over the weekend, which is this. Quincy Avery tweeted, "You want to know what the worst part about the situation at the University of Texas is? No matter how bad the QB plays, you cannot go in another direction. You just have to stew in the mess. The season isn't going to end well if something doesn't change." And it's just like, I kind of agree with that. Like, you cannot bench him, not to mention the fact that, like, they're not overly deep at the quarterback position anyway. So, like, it is what it is, and it's going to play out. My prediction still, and you don't have to take my prediction with any credence considering the fact of how wrong I was in August. I don't know if it's impossible for him to make the Heisman finalist ceremony now, but it seems impossible. I still think that it's not as bad as it looks. It cannot be. Because if it is that bad, then Steve Sarkisian has done a terrible job, right? Like,
here's what Sark said about what you do about getting his attention.
You just coach him. You know, that's our job, to coach. And you know, different scenarios call for different measures, right, of what you need to do. And you know, I didn't, you know, if Arch was having a bunch of mental errors and not operating the offense well, then that maybe would have required to taken out. I didn't feel like that was the case. You know, different things require different things to get your point across. And so, you know, we handled it accordingly. We'll handle it accordingly this week and expect them to come out and have a great game Saturday.
They're playing Sam Houston State on Saturday. So they're going to win this game. This is a chance for a get-right game for Arch. Clearly, Steve Sarkisian is confident that he can come out of this.
Has your thought of Texas as a program that could win the national title altered dramatically?
Yes. If you can't offensively operate against UTEP, you have no chance of winning the national title.
Yeah. My question really is how much of it, like, you know, sometimes when you have games that are just sleepy or games that are bad, because he did, you know, clearly the week before he threw 4 touchdowns in the first half against a better team. So, like, clearly that isn't like,
but he wasn't great right off the bat against San Jose State either.
No, I know, but I don't think that what we saw against UTEP is an indication of what he is. I think that, like, it's probably the baseline's much higher than that. I think it was an exceptionally bad game. Well,
he's about to play a very good defense in Florida. Now, we'll see where Florida's at. We don't know what's going to happen in the Miami game. Florida's got an open date between then. But Florida's defense has been good. Their offense is another story entirely, and obviously DJ Lagway is a big part of that. That defense will test him. If he plays the way he played against UTEP, it would get ugly, potentially, unless DJ Lagway is also throwing to the other team, which he did it 5 times against LSU, so who knows?
Yeah. I still think they can win the SEC. Like, I am not, like, in the correction of overreacting when things go well, I'm going to try to be better about overreacting when things don't go well. Now, I think we'll know against Florida a lot, because against Ohio State in his first start on the road, there's a lot of mitigating circumstances there that could make things difficult.
I also will go back to the very end of the Ohio State game when they just kind of let it loose and were running up tempo, and he looked much more comfortable. Like, at the end of the Ohio State game, he looked comfortable. I don't feel like watching that looked awkward like it did at the beginning of that game or at the beginning of the San Jose State game or throughout the entire UTEP game.
Florida is the perfect test where it's a good defense on the road in the SEC, but you're not playing an overly great team at the moment. Like, it's like, if you can't have a very good or pretty good game and lead your team to a win at Florida, then I'm going to really be ringing the alarm bells.
Right. And I mean, that's going to work that's going to work both ways, because the Texas defense is obviously very good, and DJ Lagway is going to have to play against that defense. Now, DJ Lagway will have played against the LSU defense and the Miami defense already, so we'll kind of know where that's at. But it will be just a fascinating matchup in general, and we'll obviously talk about that more when that game comes. But
that's the one I have circled, Andy, and I think you might too.
Well, it's circled. But the thing is, if Miami and Florida State keep winning, we're not going to be in Gainesville. We're going to be in Tallahassee that day.
But we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot that day about him.
So Steve Sarkisian clearly thinks Arch Manning is going through a phase and is going to be okay. That this is not a problem that can't be solved. And so you got to ask the question by Kirk Bowles, the Austin American Statesman columnist, about Arch and what happens. And here's the answer. I think it gives you a very good, clear picture into Steve Sarkisian's mind right now.
Steve, in the offseason, you noted that there would be challenges for Arch. And just kind of curious, this is probably the first time he's facing this type of adversity on his career. In a way, is it good to finally just get this out of the way because he can only go up from here?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think some of this is really good. Here's a guy who's had an awesome life. He's the way he's grown up, where he played, the school he went to, the people he's been surrounded by. But I think you learn a lot about yourself through adversity and overcoming adversity and getting on the other side of adversity. And so to have some of this adversity that he has right now, and when he gets on the other side of it, I think all of this is going to serve not only well for him, but well for us as a team. And so love the challenge for him, love the challenge for us. And he's a strong-minded guy. He's got great work ethic, great poise, great composure. He's an awesome teammate, and so I love the end of the movie for him when he gets on the other side of this. So looking forward to it.
Sorry, that wasn't Kirk Bowles. That was the Sunshine Pumper question, which you'll get in the college football press conferences, where it's like, things aren't that bad, right, Coach?
Yeah. He's had a good life.
He has a great life.
Great life. And even if it doesn't work out in football, he's still going to have a pretty good life. He's a tall, handsome Manning. But it is we talked about it in the offseason too, Andy. If he's good, we're going to talk about him a lot. But it's more compelling that he's bad right now.
Mm-hmm. Because it seems so incongruous with everything we've heard and seen. And the thing is, we had at least a small sample size of him as the starter, where he looked effective last year. This UTEP game was far worse than anything he did last year.
I have a tin hat theory if you want it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's Tuesday. Put your tinfoil hat on.
Steve Sarkisian is intentionally tanking the first half of the Texas season only to bring him back in the second half of the season and him look awesome so that he can still accomplish his goals in 2025 without having to answer questions about the way 2024 ended.
Wow. That is so galaxy brain.
Yeah, genius. It's not true, but
I can't even comprehend.
Nothing's true.
Yeah, there's no chance that's true, but you had me for a second. I was like, maybe.
Yeah, if Arch finishes off in November and catches fire and is awesome in November and December, they make the college football playoff. You can always go back and say, well, why didn't Arch play more in the playoff last year? Because he was not ready to play more.
And everyone will believe it now.
And everybody believes it now. So this is actually perfect for Texas.
That is amazing. I love it. And I kind of believe it, even though I know it's not true.
Don't you? You want to believe it.
Here's another facet of this. I did mention that there was a Kirk Bowles question in here. So this is the Kirk Bowles question, and I was intrigued by Steve Sarkisian's answer, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Ari.
Mm-hmm. With Arch's struggles, do you kind of lean more into the running game a little bit like you did with 56 runs?
Yeah, obviously we leaned into him running the ball a little bit more. And again, as I said Saturday, I think we're going to have to wrap our brains around that's kind of part of our offense is utilizing the quarterback run game. Some games will require more than others. I think we were intentionally Saturday. I needed to find out about these other three kids running the ball with Jarek and Christian and obviously James Simon, with Trey down and with Cedric down, finding out about them. I think the style of defense dictates some of that too. It was a bunch of three safety, don't give up deep balls against us. And so, running the ball was advantageous. I felt like we left a lot of meat on the bone in the run game. We probably should have had more yardage there than we did.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
We have to wrap our brains around, because Kirk Bowles did not ask about Arch in the running game. He asked about the running game in general. And Sarkisian's mind immediately goes to, we have to wrap our brains around the quarterback run being a more important part of the offense, which is probably true because it is something that Arch does fairly well. Ari, trivia question. Who currently leads the Texas Longhorns in rushing yards?
Arch Manning.
That's right, by 2. CJ Baxter has 110, Arch has 112. Who currently leads the Texas Longhorns in rushing touchdowns?
Arch Manning.
Arch Manning has 3, and the rest of the team has 0.
I'm so good at trivia.
This
I don't know if you've noticed
the offense. I think Steve Sarkisian envisioned using Arch as a runner, but I don't think he envisioned a true dual threat QB offense, which is maybe what it needs to be to maximize Arch.
Yeah, which is a scary proposition because he has gotten banged up a few times. So, you want to limit his exposure, but at the same time, if he is a lethal running threat, which is what we were screaming into microphones last December about incessantly, then you want to make the defense feel off balance as much as you possibly can. And if you look at the best quarterbacks in the world, all of them are rushing threats. I mean, like Josh Allen, it's impossible to defend him because he's incredibly accurate and makes great passes downfield. But also, if you lose sight of him for a second,
he's a 240-pound dump truck that can run you over.
And I'm not comparing Arch to Josh Allen, but I'm just saying what's obvious, which is when you have a running threat and a quarterback who can be lethal with his legs, it's inherently harder to defend. So I would lean into everything that he does well while he's growing and make him more comfortable. I think that a lot of it too is confidence. He needs to see a few passes, land in the end zone in the right way, not into the defender's hands like it was against UTEP. Didn't he throw a pick in the end zone? It's a gradual thing. And if you believe that, he's still new and he still hasn't played much and he's still, he's been in college for a long time, but he hasn't played a lot. Do what you can to make him feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's what I wonder is Steve Sarkisian, does he feel like he didn't build the offense necessarily the ideal way around Arch's skill set? And I have no doubt that, because it's not like people assume that, this is the playbook. There are only these plays, but every coach has a pretty diverse playbook and they kind of tailor it to the players they have. It's not hard for Sark to just reach into different parts of the playbook and then say, this may fit this QB better. So this is not something that you have to go and overhaul in an off season. You can do this in season. And so maybe we see a little bit different flavor of the Texas offense going forward that does emphasize Arch Manning as a runner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be great. Oh, one other thing I wanted to throw at you, curveball. I do a thoughts piece every Monday. That's 20 thoughts from the weekend. And it gets to 3,000 words. And it's just me just regurgitating what's in my brain. And I had a thought. I even sent it to you on Sunday, if you remember, beforehand, wondering if it was fair. Arch is the story. Arch is the famous person. Arch is the player we spent all offseason talking about and the most hyped recruit of all time. Mm-hmm. That said, is it time for Steve Sarkisian to consider hiring an offensive coordinator?
I've seen a little bit of that. And so obviously, as someone who lives in Gainesville, I'm a veteran of the head coach needs to hire an offensive coordinator argument from the fans. I don't think Steve Sarkisian's there yet. I know we've talked about his red zone struggles. He clearly sees those. I mean, they reared their ugly head again against UTEP. But I think he's been successful enough doing it the way he wants to do it that he's earned the right to keep doing it that way. Mm-hmm. If it were to get worse, if it were to get to where they suddenly were regressing, and maybe they are, but I would need to see a whole season of regression, or even more than a whole season of regression, because what he's done so far has been pretty excellent. And so it's not the same thing as Billy Napier being 20 and 22 in year 4 and refusing to give up play calling.
Yeah. And also there's a discussion that could be had of should any head coach be calling plays? Like, I think that we've seen a lot of coaches who have given up calling plays take a next step in the success of their programs. And I wonder if that's just like a think piece. Maybe that's an off-season discussion, but like it's.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it ebbs and flows. Like the NFL's got a ton of coaches right now that call plays on both sides of the ball. Yeah. And it's great when it works and everybody's on your ass when it doesn't.
And maybe it's just low-hanging fruit when things aren't going well. It's just an easy thing to grab.
I saw on the Florida message boards floating around, there's a quote from Eli Drinkwitz that he gave when he hired Kirby Moore as his offensive coordinator, where he said, hey, I realized that I needed to do a better job with the CEO and motivational aspects and mindset aspects of the game. And I felt like I could be a better head coach this way. And don't quote me on the record. I believe it's 27-5 since he did that.
Yeah.
They've been very good since then. So it just depends on the person. It depends on the coach. Like, I like Steve Sarkisian as a play caller enough that I don't know that he could hire a better play caller than himself.
Yeah.
Billy Napier probably could hire a better play caller than himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah.
We'll see.
At the same time with our shoulders. So
I know, like, because the Arch thing is that's what it does to us. That's what this Arch argument does to people. Because while everybody, and we discussed the backlash, everybody got sick of us anointing him. They're happy that we were wrong about that. But I also think, and you mentioned this earlier, nobody honestly thought it would be bad. They thought probably the floor of this was average.
Yeah.
So
I thought that even if he were average, he would amass enough statistics and production to go to New York. That was the heart of the thing that you played.
Yeah. But I meant average, like just a guy. And
Texas fans would tell you that Quinn Ewers was average.
Right. But I don't think Quinn Ewers was average. And now I really don't think Quinn Ewers was average.
Yeah. He's down in Florida right now smoking some cigs on a balcony looking at the ocean and just letting the breeze go through his hair, right?
I don't think he's smoking any cigs.
Yeah, who knows? He's from Texas.
He's on an NFL roster right now. He's got to maintain a healthy
Obviously,
lifestyle.
You've never seen all the iconic pictures of
Yes, in the 50s and 60s, they also sold cars in the offseason.
Dude, they were smoking darts at halftime when men were men.
Ari's going back to the Y.A. Tittle days. I don't know if Y.A. Tittle smoked, but listen, we've had some smoking hot takes about Arch Manning. We will continue to have smoking hot takes about Arch Manning because I got to say, as you pointed out, Ari, he is probably more interesting this way than he would be if he'd been awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about it. The rest of the week, Wednesday show, mega board. What is popping off on the On3 message boards? Our guy Brett McMurphy will join us. I know we're talking some Notre Dame, but also we're going to monitor the mega board and see what else pops up because you guys are very fun on the message boards. Very fun indeed. Also, Thursday, you know what it is. Dear Andy, dear Ari, hit us up. Ask us your questions. We will answer them on the show. Andy Staples on3 at gmail.com. ari.wasserman at on3.com. Send us those emails. We've already got a couple good questions for the show, but we love more and we love answering your questions. And we love when you help drive the show. So thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. That'll cost you nothing. Or do that and then also subscribe to On3. Your first week is free and you get a year of The Athletic along with it. So nothing wrong with that. Join On3. You have access to your favorite team site. You also have access to everybody's message board, which what I love about the mega board is you see a fun topic on the mega board. It doesn't have to be like, well, I'm an Oklahoma fan and that's not on Sooner Scoop, so I don't get to read it. No, you get to read it. Even if it's on Inside Texas or if it's on the Wolverine or if it's on Letterman Row, you still get to read it. And that is so much fun because we are the best college football community in America. at On3, and we want you to join our community. We will talk to you on Wednesday.